There is a mystery behind California's possibility becoming Big Ten's 20th school and possible expansion. We're going to be talking about this on episode 63 of Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. Plus, we're going to be talking about the latest Gene Smith's comments in regards to USC and UCLA. There were the only two schools that made sense for us, and it's USC and UCLA. He made those comments on his Gene Smith podcast that was reported yesterday. We're going to be talking about that, and we're also going to be going through our Week 5 Heisman Watch here at Peek Around the Corner. All that on episode 63. Please leave your comments down in the comment section below the video. I read them all. Please smash the like button if you like this content. Share the video with your family and friends and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this ever-growing channel. We thank you so much. Let's first quickly go through our Heisman Watch. Week 5 Heisman Watch at Peek Around the Corner. Let me know what your list is on the comment section below the video. Number 3, we got Blake Corum, the running back for the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan rated 4th in the country. They're switching back and forth in the quarterback, and it looks like they have stuck with J.J. McCarthy, who looks like a promising young quarterback. But the number 1 football player on the number 4 team in the country, no doubt, is running back Blake Corum. He's already ran for 478 yards, 7.5 yards per rush with 9 TDs. That's our number 3 so far on our Heisman Watch. Number 2, Hendon Hooker, Tennessee Volunteers quarterback. At the start of the season, Tennessee was not ranked in the top 25, and it blew our mind. Now they are definitely a top 10 school in the country, led by their quarterback, Hendon Hooker. 71.7 completion percentage, 1,193 yards, 8 touchdown passes with 0 interceptions. Hendon Hooker has been fantastic. In the first 4 weeks of the season, Tennessee is 4-0. The number 1 on our Heisman Watch after Week 4, as we sit here in Week 5, the quarterback of the Ohio State Buckeyes, C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud completing 70.5% of his passes, 1,222 yards, 16 touchdown passes. Let me repeat, 16 touchdown passes with only 1 interception. We believe C.J. Stroud is number 1 with a bullet in Week 5 Heisman Watch. That is our list at Peek Around the Corner. Now, let's get to another story about the Gene Smith comments that was reported on yesterday. This is John Wilner, the legendary writer, Wilner Hotline, Mercury News. You know him well, legendary writer. He gave us a little tweet here yesterday. If you want to listen to the podcast, it's Season 4, Episode 5, the Gene Smith podcast. Gene Smith, there were really only 2 schools that made sense for us, and it's USC and UCLA. This is John Wilner's comment. If Smith isn't on board with additional expansion, it's not happening. Now, I agree with that. If Ohio State Buckeyes are not on board, Big Ten is not expanding. Now, many Big Ten fans would say, well, Greg, or other fans, well, Greg, Ohio State's only 1 vote. But I would put it to you this way. If Ohio State is not on board, others won't be on board. They won't have the votes in this day and age of the Big Ten Conference. What I would disagree with John Wilner on is I don't believe Gene Smith is saying in this podcast, is saying that he wouldn't be on board for additional expansion. Go listen to the podcast. First of all, it was Gene Smith, Mike Bone, athletic director of USC. They were both on the show. Mike Bohn was a guest. They talked about the success of the confidentiality surrounding the discussions between USC and Ohio State, UCLA, and the Big Ten. The confidentiality that circled around it, that hardly anyone knew about these talks. They were really focusing on the USC Big Ten talks. Now, we at Peek Around the Corner reported on March 31st that there were talks, and if you're new to the show, you can go to our pinned tweet at Flug Empire and read the story about how we knew and all that stuff. Now, USC, Mike Bohn talked about the complexities of the talks between USC and the Big Ten. And he gave high praise to Kevin Warren to get this done. Gene Smith talked about how he had to talk through the issues. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to the podcast. My take on it was different than John Wilner's take. Your take might agree with Wilner's or mine, or you might have a different take. But for me, it was Gene Smith saying, at the time, there were really only two schools that made sense for us. Not that there is only really two schools that made sense for us. Right? There's a difference here. Now, you got to remember at this time, and I know it's difficult for people to get back in the mindset of March and April and May. But no one was talking about Big Ten expansion except for us at Peek Around the Corner. Nobody was talking about the possibility of the Big Ten expansion expanding to the Pac-12. How do I know this? Because I personally sent out the call. I sent out information to media members. There was only a couple that took it seriously. USC 247, Minnesota 247, All Eyes on Big Ten podcast with Big Kurt and Jeffrey the Greek. Everyone else completely dismissed it. No one took it seriously. No one was reporting on it. The Pac-12 schools were not calling the Big Ten and knocking on the door and say, let us in. USC did. And UCLA did. You remember the conference realignment, when a school calls the conference and the conference is actually interested, it doesn't happen like this. Realignment just doesn't happen. It takes months of talks. You have to talk through it. USC and UCLA were the only two schools in the game. And Fox Sports wanted USC and UCLA to be 15 and 16. So for Gene Smith, he says there were really only two schools that made sense for us. Yes, at that time, because USC and UCLA actually called the Big Ten. Fox Sports actually wanted USC and UCLA. And you were actually going through the talks, the complexity talk, very complex discussions. You had to talk through it. You had to figure out how it would work. To me, Gene Smith is not saying, there are only two schools that make sense for us. There is only two schools. No, at this point in time, there were only two schools for the 15th and 16th spot. And as we reported, Peek Around the Corner, and others have as well, it also makes sense for us for the Big Ten Conference. Many people in the Big Ten Conference, and especially Kevin Warren, not to have USC and UCLA alone home on an island. So, I agree with John Wilner in the fact that you need Ohio State Buckeyes and Gene Smith on board to get a 17th and 18th school, or possibly 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th school in this wave of realignment that isn't quite over yet. I agree with John Wilner on that, but I do not agree with his take that this is it. I mean, that this is definitely it. Ohio State is not on board with the 17th or 18th school. That's my take. But again, please listen to the Gene Smith podcast. Listen to the whole context of the conversation and then try to get your mind back to where it was when USC called before March 31st. We know that. Get your mind in the set of what was going on at the time. USC and UCLA were the only two games in town. They were the only two that were talking to the Big Ten. Big Ten was talking to them. Okay, let's get on to the big story. Big story of the day. Okay. The mystery surrounding California. The mystery surrounding California as a potential 20th school, the 20th Big Ten school. This has always been a mystery to peek around the corner. We have not been able to track this down. If you have been watching our channel, especially when it opened up on August 10th, it hasn't even been 2 months yet. We discussed, and if you've been watching our Twitter account at Flug Empire, you see it on the ticker below the video here. You know that we, on July 2nd, July 3rd, we first said that Stanford, Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame were going to be the next targets of the Big Ten. On July 25th, I made a big announcement on Twitter account that yes, definitely these are the targets, and they're going to start formal talks sometime in the second week of August. We made a little video on July 25th about that. And then when there were reports that Big Ten had cooled on these targets, we said no, that wasn't the case. The talks were still going on. And then there were independent national reports of Brett McMurphy at Action Network saying these are the 4 targets: Washington, Stanford, Oregon, and California. And there had been talks between Oregon and the Big Ten and Washington and the Big Ten. Great reporting by Brett McMurphy at Action Network. And then recently you had the reports of CBS Sports' Dennis Dodd saying there's a continued pursuit, potential targeting of Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and California by the Big Ten if it can work out with Amazon. So you know all this information, but the name California keeps popping up. We don't have that information at Peek Around the Corner. From BTM and his associates, from our intel, California never gets brought up, and it's a mystery to us. Yes, we only have a certain perch of information. We call it the money perch. California doesn't get brought up in the money perch. Okay? And if you need more information on that, again, go to our pinned tweet and an article in the Los Angeles Times. It's a mystery to us. We know that California is an incredible public university, either number one or number 2 in the country, depending on who you ask. Okay? We know they bring in an incredible location, San Francisco. Between them and Stanford, they bring in a beautiful Northern California, huge population, and a demographics that has money, consumer money, to buy the products and services national advertisers love. All that sounds great for the addition of California. We all know their weaknesses, right? California, the intensity of the fan base. They don't really show up to football games. Would they actually buy and purchase the Big Ten network if they become a Big Ten member? Okay, we all know the strengths and weaknesses. The mystery to us is why we just can't find any information from anybody that we talk to, why California is that 20th school and why it's not somebody else. Because we do hear a little bit of steam on other long shots for the 20th school. But we heard nothing about California. But let's forget about Peek Around the Corner. Let's forget about BTM and his associates. Let's forget about me. Let's flip the coin and look at it from California's perspective. Okay, let's get to this article. Here's Gavin Newsom. Here's an article. Gavin Newsom blasts lack of transparency in UCLA's move to the Big Ten. Madison Williams, July 15, 2022 on SI. And there are other articles out there. Okay. When it was announced that UCLA and USC surprising June announcement, they were moved from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, the University of California Board of Regents has started looking into the decision with California's Governor Gavin Newsom. Okay, into the article, reading from the article. Trust me when I say this. We're not going to be looking into it, Newsom says. We are already looking into it within minutes after reading about this in the newspaper. Newsom says the biggest issue he had with UCLA's news is the regents were never consulted about the potential move. He claims he learned about the move from the newspaper, as many fans did. Is it a good idea? Did we discuss the merits? I'm not aware that anyone did, Newsom said. So it was done in isolation. It was done without any regional oversight or support. I have strong opinions about this. For no other reason than as a member of the regents, we were never consulted, never asked for an opinion. They didn't even have the decency to provide a heads up. So my question is, and the question surrounding the mystery of California, potentially becoming the Big Ten 20th school. My question is to Governor Gavin Newsom and to the Board of Regents. Have you been given a heads up that Big Ten is talking with the University of California to become a potential 20th team in the Big Ten? Has there been any talks? We know from reports that Oregon has met with Big Ten officials, that Washington has met with Big Ten officials. Reports from Brett McMurphy, from Asher Network, and other people have confirmed it. So, has the University of California had any talks, preliminary talks whatsoever with the Big Ten? And if they have, isn't it quite strange that the University of California Board of Regents are acting in the way they are towards UCLA? Threatening what we would call, what we're phrasing, as a toll tax on UCLA. To take UCLA's Big Ten money that they will receive in 2024, taking a portion of it and putting it into the California system or to the University of California's athletic department, however that plays out. The USC Board of Regents have had meetings, board meetings, discussions. Gavin Newsom has had meetings on it. They're acting like Californians have had no conversations with the Big Ten. Am I reading this right? Am I reading this wrong? Please put your comments down in the comment section below the video. I find it a mystery. First of all, I'm very lukewarm on California becoming the 20th school in the Big Ten on a personal. I know they're an incredible school, but I don't think they bring the value that is needed, even at a discount rate, especially when Stanford is part of the Washington, Oregon, and Stanford 17th, 18th, and 19th school, as we believe at Peak Around the Corner. We believe Stanford will become a Big Ten school. But forget about my personal beliefs on University of California. Look at the actions of the Board of Regents. So, my question is, if you want transparency, if you were upset that UCLA they did everything in isolation, is the University of California doing everything in isolation right now? Are they informing UCLA that they're in talks with the Big Ten as well? And that maybe UCLA, you should put a good word in for us. I might even send out a tweet. This nobody might send out a tweet to Gavin Newsom and say, Governor, have you in your office been communicate as Big Ten, giving you guys a call and letting you know that they're in talks with the University of California? I know I'll get no response. But again, the complaint was transparency in UCLA's part. Where's the transparency in the University of California's part? Have you, University of California, spoken with UCLA? And if Big Ten has actually been in contact with the University of California, if you've set up those preliminary discussions and meetings like the Big Ten has done with Oregon and Washington, is this really the best action for you to sit there and threaten a toll tax in UCLA here in the last month or so? I find the whole thing a mystery, and we do not have the answers. That's why we're bringing it up here on episode 63. We talk about everything in college football at Peek Around the Corner. The Heisman Watch, bowl projections, the polls. And we even talk about mysteries we have no idea what the answer is to them. The mystery behind California potentially becoming the 20th Big Ten school still remains here at Peek Around the Corner. We don't quite understand it from just about every single angle. Again, please put your comments down in the comments section below. Let me know what you're thinking about as California as the potential 20th school in this window of realignment. And again, until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much.